Tom Bennett was a simple man, someone who liked to keep to himself and focus on his work. He was in his early 30s, tall and lean from working hard every day on his farm. Tom wasn't one for excitement or drama. His life had always been predictable, grounded in the rhythm of the seasons and the quiet of his small farm. He worked long hours, tending to the fields, making sure the hay was ready for sale, and occasionally meeting with local farmers for trade. He liked it that way. Tom's reputation in town was that of a hard-working, dependable man. He didn't make much noise, nor did he seek attention. Most people knew him as the guy who sold hay, nothing more, nothing less. In the small town where Tom lived, everyone had their place, and he was comfortable with his own. Life had always seemed straightforward until one afternoon when everything changed. It started with a simple request. Sarah Collins was a woman who lived on the outskirts of town. She was known by everyone, but not in the way you might expect. Unlike most of the townsfolk, Sarah preferred to stay to herself. She was a widow in her late 40s and had lived on her farm for years. Her husband had passed away several years ago under mysterious circumstances, and since then, Sarah had become more withdrawn. Some people said she was strange, even haunted by her past. They whispered about her in town, though no one really knew the full story. Tom had heard her name many times, but he never paid much attention to the gossip. One day, as he was finishing his work at the farm, Tom received an unexpected call. It was Sarah Collins. She was asking him to deliver a load of hay to her farm. At first, Tom thought the request was strange. After all, he didn't know her well, and most of his customers were regulars from the area. But Sarah was polite, and her request seemed harmless enough. So, Tom agreed, figuring it would be just another stop along his usual route. The next morning, Tom loaded up his truck with fresh hay, ready to make the delivery. He didn't think much of it as he drove through the fields, the dirt road leading him farther away from town. The weather was warm and clear, the kind of day that made everything feel calm and quiet. It was a peaceful drive, the only sound the hum of his truck's engine. As Tom pulled up to Sarah's farm, he noticed how quiet it was. There were no animals in sight, no movement around the house, which struck him as odd. The farmhouse itself was large, with a weathered, almost ancient look to it. The barn behind the house stood tall, its wooden walls worn down by years of wind and rain. The whole place seemed to hold a sense of mystery, almost as if it were frozen in time. Sarah was standing by the barn when Tom arrived, waving him over with a smile that seemed forced. She looked much older than Tom had imagined, her face lined with years of hard living. Her hair, once dark, was now streaked with gray, and her clothes were simple but well-worn. She had an air of quiet confidence, but there was something about her that felt a little off. "Hello, Tom," Sarah said, her voice soft but steady. "Thanks for coming. I've been needing some hay, and I'm sure you've got just what I need." Tom nodded and stepped out of the truck. "No problem. Just let me know where you want it." He wasn't sure what to expect, but he figured it was just another normal delivery. The sooner he finished, the sooner he could go back to his usual routine. As he unloaded the hay, Sarah watched him carefully. She didn't say much, but her eyes never left him, as if she were studying every movement. Tom noticed how quiet the place was, the kind of silence that felt a little too heavy. There were no sounds of animals or farm workers. It was as though the world around them had paused. "So, have you been?" Tom asked, trying to make small talk. He thought maybe that would break the tension that seemed to hang in the air. Sarah's gaze shifted for a moment, and then she replied, "I've been all right. It's been a difficult year." Her voice trailed off, and Tom couldn't help but notice the sadness in her eyes. But before he could ask what she meant, she quickly changed the subject. "I've had a lot on my mind lately. My husband, well, he's been gone for a while now." Tom nodded politely, but he could sense that Sarah was struggling with something, though she wasn't saying much. He didn't want to pry into her personal life after all. They weren't close, but there was an odd feeling settling in the pit of his stomach. As he finished unloading the hay, Sarah suddenly approached him. Her hands, once soft, now looked weathered, like they had seen too much hard work. She reached out and grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly firm. Tom blinked in surprise, unsure of what was happening. "Tom," she said, her voice low, "you need to come inside for a moment. There's something you need to see." Tom didn't know how to respond. He hadn't planned on staying long, and the request felt strange. Still, there was something in Sarah's eyes that made him hesitate. He knew she wasn't someone who asked for help often, and he didn't want to seem rude or dismissive. I don't think I can stay long, Sarah," he said, trying to be polite. "I've got a lot of work back at the farm." But Sarah's face darkened. "Please, Tom," she insisted. "Just for a moment. You don't understand, but I need someone to see this. You'll see. You'll see why I asked you here." Something in her tone made Tom feel uneasy. He glanced at the barn door, which was slightly ajar. It looked like a simple, everyday barn. But there was something about the way Sarah was acting that made him wary. Before he could say anything more, Sarah suddenly grabbed his arm again, this time with more urgency. "Please," she said, almost pleading. "Come inside. I have to show you." For a moment, Tom stood there, unsure of what to do. But then, in a split second, Sarah pulled him toward the barn door. "Come on," she urged, her voice now sharp with a sense of desperation. And just like that, without warning, she yanked him into the barn. Tom stumbled as he was pulled inside, feeling the weight of Sarah's grip on his arm. The barn door slammed shut behind them, and the heavy sound of the lock clicking into place echoed in the air. Tom's heart raced. What was happening? Why had she locked the door? He turned to face her, but Sarah was already backing away, her face tense. "What is this, Sarah?" Tom asked, his voice rising with confusion. "Why did you lock the door?" Sarah didn't answer. She just stood there, staring at him with wide eyes, as if waiting for something. The barn, once a quiet and peaceful place, suddenly felt like a cage. Tom didn't know what to think, but he could tell that this was no ordinary visit. Something was wrong, and he was caught in the middle of it. Tom swallowed hard, trying to stay calm. "Sarah, what's going on?" he repeated, but his words seemed to hang in the air, unanswered. The silence stretched between them. Tom's mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. What had he walked into? And why was Sarah acting like this? All he could do now was wait and wonder. Tom's heart pounded as he stared at Sarah, who was still standing near the locked barn door. The sudden silence between them felt suffocating. For a moment, Tom considered trying to force the door open, but something in Sarah's eyes made him pause. There was a desperation there, a deep fear that Tom had never seen before. "Sarah, what is this?" Tom asked, his voice shaking slightly. "Why did you lock me in here? What's going on?" Sarah's eyes flickered to the ground, and for a moment, she seemed to be lost in thought. She didn't answer immediately, and Tom could feel the weight of the silence pressing down on him. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of the situation. He didn't know why she had pulled him into the barn, but he could tell she was hiding something. Whatever it was, it had to be serious. "Tom, I didn't want to involve anyone," Sarah finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I didn't have a choice. I need your help." Tom frowned, his confusion deepening. "Help with what? You could have asked me in a normal way. Why lock me in here?" Sarah's eyes darted nervously around the barn, as though she were checking to see if they were being watched. Her hands trembled as she wrung them together. Tom noticed the strain in her movements, the way she seemed to be holding herself together by sheer force of will. "You don't understand," Sarah continued, her voice cracking slightly. "I've been getting these letters, threatening letters, for weeks now. They're from someone I knew a long time ago, and they're getting worse. I thought I could ignore them, but now I think they're getting closer. I think they're watching me." Tom's confusion deepened. "Letters? Who's sending them? And why didn't you tell someone sooner?" Sarah looked down at the ground, her shoulders slumped in exhaustion. "I didn't want to bother anyone. I thought I could handle it. But now I don't know who else to turn to. I've been trying to keep it quiet, to protect myself. But the last letter, it said they were coming for me, and I think they're here." The hair on the back of Tom's neck stood up. He could feel the tension building in the barn, thick and heavy like the air before a storm. Whatever Sarah was saying, whatever was happening, it wasn't just in her mind. Tom had seen the fear in her eyes, and now he was beginning to feel it too. "Who is it, Sarah? Who's sending these letters?" Tom asked, his voice urgent. "If they're really a threat, you need to call the police." "I can help you do that." Sarah's face hardened, her eyes narrowing. "I can't call the police. Not for this. You wouldn't understand." Tom was growing more and more confused. "What do you mean? If someone's threatening you, you can't just ignore it. You need to tell someone." Sarah's eyes filled with a strange mixture of fear and anger. "It's not that simple. The letters, they're from Henry Marshall. You wouldn't know him, but he was involved with my late husband. They were close. To close, if you ask me." Tom felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard of Henry Marshall, but only in passing. The name had always been whispered around town in a way that made people uncomfortable. No one ever spoke much about him, but Tom had always sensed that there was something off about the man. He had a reputation for being involved in shady dealings, though no one could say exactly what those dealings were. "I don't understand," Tom said slowly. "What does Henry have to do with all of this? And why didn't you tell me any of this before?" Sarah looked away, her eyes clouded with memories of the past. "My husband, Daniel, he wasn't the man everyone thought he was. He had secrets, dark ones, and Henry was part of those secrets. When Daniel passed away, I thought that was the end of it. But now, Henry's come back, and he's not happy. He's blaming me for something I don't even understand." Tom felt a knot tighten in his stomach. This was getting stranger by the minute. Sarah was clearly terrified, and the mention of Henry Marshall only made things worse. Tom had never seen Sarah like this before. She was always so quiet, so composed. But now, it was clear that whatever was happening was more than she could handle on her own. "So, what do we do now?" Tom asked, trying to steady his voice. He felt an odd sense of responsibility for Sarah now. He didn't know why, but the situation felt personal, like he couldn't just walk away. He wasn't sure if it was the fear in Sarah's eyes or the strange pull of the whole situation. But he knew he had to stay. "We wait," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "Henry's been here before. I know he's been watching me. And now that you're here, I'm afraid he's going to come for both of us." Before Tom could respond, a loud noise outside the barn caught both of their attention. It sounded like a truck, heavy, slow, and deliberate. The hairs on the back of Tom's neck stood up. He couldn't explain it, but he had a bad feeling. This wasn't just a coincidence anymore. Henry Marshall was here. Tom moved quickly to the barn door, trying to peer through a crack in the wood. His heart raced as he saw a shadow move past the barn. He couldn't make out the figure, but he knew it was a person. And that person was coming closer. "Sarah," Tom whispered urgently. "He's here." Sarah's face went pale, and she took a step back, her body trembling. "I told you he would come for me. He's not going to leave until he gets what he wants." Tom turned to Sarah, his mind racing. He couldn't just let her face this alone. But what could he do? He wasn't a trained investigator or a fighter. All he had was his wits and his determination to protect someone who clearly needed help. He needed a plan, and fast. "Okay," Tom said, his voice steady. "We need to figure out how to get out of here. We can't just sit around and wait for him to come in. There's got to be another way out." Sarah nodded, her eyes wide with fear. She moved to the far side of the barn and began to search through some old boxes and crates. Tom followed her, trying to think of a way out of this. If Henry had really been watching her, he might know about all the exits from the barn. They needed to think of something that would give them a chance to escape without being seen. After what felt like an eternity, Sarah found what she was looking for: a small window near the back of the barn, covered by a heavy curtain. It was a tight fit, but it might be their only way out. "Help me move this," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "We can climb out the back. If we're quick enough, we can get to the woods before he knows we're gone." Tom didn't hesitate. He grabbed the curtain and pulled it aside, revealing the window. It was small, but just big enough for them to squeeze through. They had to act fast. As they worked together to open the window, Tom's mind raced. He wasn't sure what would happen next, but he knew one thing for sure: they couldn't stay in that barn. Henry was coming, and if they didn't escape now, it might be too late.